Captain Daniel Hayes had returned home in a haze of exhaustion and pride. Months of fighting in distant star systems had left him drained, but he had survived battles that had claimed the lives of men far braver than himself. He had expected applause, medals, speeches, honors that would mark him as a hero. He had trained his entire life for moments like this, imagining the weight of a gleaming medal on his chest, the sound of cheers echoing across a packed auditorium. Yet as he stepped through the grand doors of the military headquarters, something felt different. The hall was silent, save for the low murmur of officers and aides moving quickly across the polished floor. Daniel noticed the stiff posture of the commanding officers, their eyes flicking toward him with a strange mixture of curiosity and hesitation. He walked forward, chest puffed with confidence, though a small knot of unease had begun to form in his stomach. "Where is the ceremony?" he asked one of the young officers who seemed uncertain for a moment. "The medal, the honor I've earned." The officer cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. "Captain Hayes, please follow me. The ceremony will begin shortly." Daniel frowned but followed, stepping into a room larger than any he had ever seen. It was illuminated by soft, warm lights that reflected off the polished floors and walls lined with flags from Earth and allied planets. The room smelled faintly of ozone and clean metal, a reminder that he was not just on Earth but in the center of humanity's power. Then he saw her. She stood at the far end of the hall, her posture straight and calm, her presence commanding. Daniel froze. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. A young woman, yes, but with an elegance that seemed almost otherworldly. Her skin had a faint golden shimmer, her eyes were large and sharp, a deep violet that seemed to pierce through him. Her hair flowed like liquid silver, catching the light in a way that made it seem almost unreal. She wore a gown of deep blue that shimmered with subtle patterns, intricate symbols that Daniel didn't recognize. A hush fell over the room as the officers turned to him. "Captain Hayes," the commanding general said, his voice unusually formal, "your bravery and skill in the recent campaign have earned humanity not only honor but an alliance." He gestured toward the alien woman. "This is Princess Liara of the Zenthari Empire. She comes to you as a symbol of peace and cooperation between our worlds." Daniel's jaw dropped. I don't understand." The general's expression remained solemn. "You expected a medal, yes, but the council has decided that your actions merited more than recognition. Princess Liara has been promised to humanity, and as the lead soldier in the campaign, it is your duty to escort and protect her while she resides on Earth. You will be her host and liaison." Daniel blinked several times, trying to make sense of what he had just heard. "You're giving me a princess," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. He had faced alien war machines, navigated collapsing starships, and survived attacks that had reduced entire battalions to ash, but nothing in his training or imagination had prepared him for this. Princess Liara stepped forward gracefully. Her eyes met his, calm but curious. She inclined her head slightly, a gesture that seemed both polite and commanding. "Captain Hayes," she said in perfect English, her voice melodic and precise, "I am to be your guest and your charge. I trust that you will treat this responsibility with care." Daniel swallowed hard, suddenly aware of the weight of the situation. He had thought he understood duty, honor, and courage, but now he faced something entirely different. Protecting a princess, a living symbol of an alien empire, was not a battlefield he could navigate with brute strength alone. It required diplomacy, patience, and understanding, qualities that were tested in a way that no war could measure. He took a deep breath. I'll do my best," he said, trying to steady his voice. Liara's eyes narrowed slightly, not in suspicion, but in a quiet assessment as if she were measuring whether his words matched his character. "I will hold you to that," she said, her tone even but firm. The following hours were a whirlwind of introductions, briefings, and preparations. Daniel found himself explaining Earth customs to Liara, while also trying to learn the basics of her own culture. She asked questions about the planet, the people, the governments, and even the food. She listened with patience and precision, never interrupting, but her eyes always seemed to be analyzing, always observing. For Daniel, the experience was humbling. He had fought wars across the stars, survived ambushes in hostile territories, and faced enemies who had wanted him dead. Yet nothing had humbled him like the realization that his actions were now part of a much larger story, one that could shape the future of two civilizations. He realized that medals, applause, and accolades were trivial compared to the trust and responsibility now placed on him. As the day turned into evening, Daniel escorted Liara to her quarters, a suite designed to make her feel comfortable yet secure. She paused at the door, glancing back at him. "Captain Hayes, I am aware that this situation is unusual, but I believe that understanding each other will benefit both our peoples." Daniel nodded, unsure whether to respond with a formal acknowledgement or a casual reassurance. "I agree, we'll figure this out together," he said finally, choosing simplicity over eloquence. Liara's lips curved into a faint smile, almost imperceptible. "I look forward to it," she said. The days that followed were filled with awkward moments, cultural misunderstandings, and small victories. Daniel tried to teach Liara about human routines, food, and even humor, while she shared subtle insights about the Zenthari way of thinking, their philosophies, and their values. At first, Daniel had been frustrated by the need to adjust, but he soon realized that these exchanges were not burdensome. They were lessons in empathy, patience, and perspective. One evening, as they walked along a balcony overlooking the city, Liara paused to gaze at the stars. Daniel stood beside her, feeling the cool night air on his face. "You've traveled so far to come here," he said, breaking the silence. "I can't imagine what it must be like for you." Liara's violet eyes reflected the starlight. "I have seen worlds you cannot imagine, Captain Hayes. I have seen civilizations rise and fall, alliances formed and broken. Yet here, on this planet, I find curiosity, a new perspective, and perhaps something else." She looked at him, and for a moment Daniel felt that she was studying not just his actions but the core of who he was. He shrugged, unsure what to say. "I guess we're both far from home," he said finally. Liara inclined her head slightly. "Indeed. And yet, perhaps it is precisely because we are far from home that we can learn to see each other more clearly." Daniel realized that he had never faced a situation like this before. Battles could be fought, enemies defeated, medals earned, but trust, understanding, and respect could not be demanded. They had to be earned, and now more than ever he understood that his true challenge had only just begun. That night, as he retired to his own quarters, Daniel reflected on the strange twist of fate that had brought Princess Liara into his life. He had expected honor, recognition, maybe a medal to prove his worth. Instead, he had been given something far more complex, a living symbol of peace, a reminder of the fragility of alliances, and a partner in a new kind of mission. He lay awake for hours, thinking not of accolades or applause, but of responsibility, trust, and the uncertain future that lay ahead. He had survived wars across the galaxy, but this required something entirely different. And yet, beneath the uncertainty, there was a spark of excitement. He could feel it, a sense that perhaps this unexpected reward would challenge him in ways no battlefield ever could, and that he might emerge not only a hero but a bridge between worlds. By the time dawn broke, Daniel had made a silent vow to himself. He would protect Princess Liara, guide her safely, and learn from her as much as she might learn from him. He would meet the challenge not with fear, but with courage, wisdom, and respect. For in the end, he realized, true heroism was not measured by medals, but by the choices one made when faced with the unknown. And with that thought, Captain Daniel Hayes rose, ready to face a new kind of battle, one that required not weapons but understanding, not force but courage, and not victory in the traditional sense, but a triumph of trust, honor, and human spirit. Days passed since Daniel had first met Princess Liara, and he was beginning to understand that this reward was far more complicated than he had imagined. The palace quarters assigned to her were spacious, elegant, and filled with strange artifacts that seemed to pulse with quiet energy. Daniel had to learn what each object was, mostly by asking Liara directly, as guessing often led to awkward mistakes. On the second morning, Daniel entered her quarters with a tray of breakfast food. He carried a steaming cup of coffee in one hand and a plate of scrambled eggs in the other, trying not to spill anything as he approached her. "Good morning, Captain Hayes," Liara said, standing near a window that overlooked the city below. She wore a simple, flowing gown, unlike the formal attire she had worn at the ceremony. Her silver hair caught the morning light, giving her an almost ethereal glow. "Good morning, Princess," Daniel said, careful to keep his tone respectful. "I brought breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee, Earth style." Liara tilted her head, observing him carefully. "Coffee, yes, I am aware of its effects on your kind. It stimulates alertness and energy." "Very well," she gestured gracefully toward the tray. "I will try it." Daniel set the tray down and waited, watching as she took a small sip. Her expression was neutral at first, then shifted slightly. "Interesting. The taste is strong, yet comforting." Daniel smiled, a little relieved. "Glad you like it. You'll get used to it." Liara set the cup down carefully and looked out the window again. "Captain, I understand that I am to stay here under your supervision. Yet I sense that you are not accustomed to hosting an alien dignitary." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "You're right. I'm more used to surviving ambushes and holding a rifle than serving as whatever this is." Liara turned to him, a faint smile curving her lips. "This is a different kind of mission, Captain Hayes, one that requires patience, understanding, and diplomacy. You have excelled at other missions. I believe you can learn to excel at this as well." Daniel sighed, feeling the weight of her words. "I hope so. I don't want to make mistakes, not with you or with what you represent." "Then we will learn together," Liara said simply. "You will teach me of Earth and I will teach you of Zenthari ways. This will be mutually beneficial." The arrangement seemed simple enough in theory, but in practice it was far more complex. Daniel quickly discovered that the princess had unusual routines, sometimes disappearing for hours, only to return with observations or questions that challenged everything he thought he knew about humanity. One afternoon, Daniel attempted to introduce her to something familiar: television. He found an old Earth entertainment show, expecting her to laugh or at least smile at the humor. Liara watched silently, her violet eyes scanning the screen with intense focus. When a character made a mistake, she tilted her head slightly. "Why do they behave in such an irrational manner?" she asked. Daniel chuckled nervously. "It's entertainment, humor, drama, people enjoy it." She considered this carefully. "I see. On Zenthari, storytelling is more direct, with lessons embedded in every narrative. Your form seems chaotic, yet there is value. I understand why your kind enjoys it." Daniel nodded, impressed by her insight. "You know, I never thought about it that way. I guess we all have different ways of learning and relaxing." Liara smiled faintly, as though satisfied with his answer. "Indeed, Captain, and your ability to adapt will be important. You will need it." Despite the growing respect between them, their interactions were not without tension. There were moments when Daniel's human instincts clashed with Liara's alien perspective. For example, he once invited her to join him on a walk outside the palace gardens. He expected her to enjoy the fresh air, the flowers, and the sunlight. Instead, she paused at the edge of the garden, scanning the horizon. "Captain Hayes, these plants, they are fragile, yet you treat them casually. I detect no concern for their well-being." Daniel froze, realizing that he had been walking too close to a delicate flower bed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on them. Liara shook her head gently. It is not about intention. It is about awareness. To coexist with a world, one must respect its elements, even the smallest ones. Daniel laughed softly, partly in embarrassment and partly in admiration. I guess I have a lot to learn. And so do I, Liara replied. I have observed many worlds, yet each has its own rhythm, its own rules. Learning requires patience, Captain Hayes. Over time, they began to find a rhythm together. Daniel taught her how to eat with earth utensils, how to navigate the city without drawing unwanted attention, and even small human customs like shaking hands or using humor in conversation. In return, Liara shared insights into Zenthari culture, teaching him about their philosophy of balance, their approach to leadership, and their unique understanding of diplomacy. One evening, Daniel received a coded message from military headquarters. The message warned of potential threats, rogue alien factions who might target the princess to destabilize peace. Daniel's pulse quickened. This was the first reminder that their situation was not merely ceremonial, it was dangerous. He shared the message with Liara, who read it calmly. I anticipated such risks, she said. Yet you seem concerned. Do you not trust my judgment? Daniel shook his head. It's not that. I trust you completely. It's just, I know what they might do if they try anything. I need to be ready. Liara studied him for a long moment. Your concern is admirable, Captain, but strength is not only in weapons. Strategy, observation, and patience are equally important. You have demonstrated all three in battle. Trust yourself as I trust you. Her words had a surprising effect on Daniel. He realized that his role was evolving. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a protector, a diplomat, and a partner in a mission that could shape the future of two civilizations. As the days went on, they continued to learn from each other. Daniel discovered that Liara had a playful side, often teasing him about Earth customs or joking about his reactions to Zenthari traditions. One morning, she attempted to mimic his favorite breakfast dish, resulting in a chaotic mess that left both of them laughing, a sound Daniel realized he had not heard in months. At the same time, Liara was not naive. She observed the people around her, understanding the complexities of human behavior, politics, and alliances. She often challenged Daniel's assumptions, pushing him to think beyond immediate solutions and consider long-term consequences. One afternoon, while they were practicing basic combat drills, a precautionary measure suggested by the military, Liara demonstrated remarkable agility and precision. Daniel struggled to keep up, realizing that she was not a passive guest, but a capable individual in her own right. You are fast, Daniel admitted, breathing heavily. I didn't expect that. Liara smiled faintly. You should not underestimate your allies, Captain Hayes. Strength comes in many forms, and I trust that you will recognize the value of all forms, not just physical prowess. By now, a quiet bond had begun to form between them. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but undeniable. They respected each other's abilities, learned from one another, and found moments of humor and warmth amidst the challenges. Daniel realized that this partnership was unlike anything he had experienced, an alliance not forged in war, but in understanding, trust, and shared responsibility. Yet even as their friendship deepened, the shadow of potential danger loomed. Rogue factions, jealous rivals, and political opportunists threatened to disrupt the fragile peace. Daniel knew that he could not rely solely on brute strength or his combat experience. He would need cunning, foresight, and the ability to anticipate threats before they arrived. Liara, for her part, remained calm, observing every detail, analyzing every interaction. She taught Daniel that true preparedness was not just about anticipating attacks, but understanding motives, predicting reactions, and building alliances. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker below, Daniel realized how much he had changed. He no longer viewed his role as a simple duty or a ceremonial honor. He understood that protecting Liara was about more than guarding a life. It was about safeguarding a future, bridging worlds, and embodying the values of humanity in ways that metals could never capture. Liara spoke quietly, breaking his thoughts. Captain Hayes, you have adapted well. You have demonstrated patience, understanding, and courage. These qualities will serve you well not only here but in the days to come. Daniel looked at her, a faint smile on his face. I never thought a reward could teach me so much. Liara inclined her head, her expression thoughtful. Sometimes, the greatest lessons come not from victories in battle, but from unexpected responsibilities and the connections we form along the way. As the night deepened, Daniel felt a sense of purpose that was stronger than any he had known before. He had survived wars across the stars, but this mission of trust, learning, and protection was unlike anything he had faced. And yet he knew that with Liara by his side, they could navigate the challenges ahead together. For Daniel Hayes, the soldier who had expected a medal, life had become far more complicated and far more meaningful. He had been given an alien princess. Yes, but in doing so, he had discovered a new kind of heroism, one that required wisdom, patience, and courage of a different kind. And as he watched Liara gaze at the stars, he felt a quiet certainty. This was only the beginning. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of the city mixed with the metallic tang of distant starports. Captain Daniel Hayes moved quickly through the corridors of the palace, alert and tense. The message he had received from headquarters the previous night was clear. Rogue factions of aliens, those who had not accepted peace with humanity, were moving closer to Earth. Their intent was to abduct Princess Liara, destabilize the alliance, and strike fear into the hearts of humans. Daniel's mind raced. He had faced ambushes before, had survived battles on hostile planets, and had fought enemies who seemed unstoppable. But this threat was different. The target was Liara, and she was not a soldier like him. She was a diplomat, a symbol of peace, and a living bridge between two civilizations. Protecting her would require every skill he had, and some he had yet to discover. Liara was already awake, standing by the balcony and gazing at the sky. Her violet eyes reflected both concern and determination. Daniel entered quietly. Princess, we've received reports that rogue ships may attempt an incursion today, he said. Liara turned to him, her expression calm. I anticipated such possibilities. We must prepare, but without panic. Panic clouds judgment. Daniel nodded, impressed as always by her composure. I've set up perimeter sensors and increased patrols. But if they come within the city limits, we'll need to act fast. She inclined her head. Then we must also anticipate strategy, not just response. Do not wait for them to make the first move. Together, they began planning. Daniel explained Earth security protocols, while Liara offered insights into alien tactics, drawing on her knowledge of the Zenthari Empire's enemies. It was an unusual partnership. A soldier and a princess, both skilled in very different ways, working to combine their strengths into a unified defense. As the hours passed, a tense silence fell over the palace. The streets below seemed normal, bustling with the morning commute, unaware of the looming danger. But Daniel could feel it, a subtle tension, the quiet before a storm. Liara moved closer to him. Captain Hayes, you rely heavily on physical defenses. That is necessary but insufficient. Consider distraction, misdirection, and psychological advantage. Even a smaller force can prevail if it acts wisely. Daniel frowned. You mean like tricking them, using their expectations against them? She smiled faintly. Exactly. The mind is a weapon as powerful as any rifle. By mid-afternoon, reports confirmed that the rogue faction had indeed approached Earth's orbit. Their ships were sleek, black, and armed with advanced weapons. Daniel and Liara watched from the palace's observation deck, analyzing movement and speed. Daniel's hand rested on the railing, tension etched across his face. "They're faster than I expected. They'll reach the city within minutes if we don't act." Liara's gaze was sharp. "Then we must act before they enter, lead with caution but strike decisively." He took a deep breath. "All right, let's do this." Within minutes, alarms sounded. The rogue ships had breached the outer perimeter and were moving rapidly toward the city. Daniel coordinated with Earth's defense forces, issuing orders while keeping a close eye on Liara. She surprised him by stepping forward. "Captain, I can assist. My knowledge of their fleet patterns may give us an advantage." Daniel hesitated for only a moment. "All right. Let's do it together." They worked in tandem, Daniel issuing commands and Liara analyzing enemy movements. Through her observations, they predicted attack patterns and guided Earth forces to intercept efficiently. Daniel realized that she was not just a symbol, she was an ally in every sense. The first wave of ships entered the city's airspace. Panic erupted below, but Daniel remained focused. "Keep calm, civilians. Follow emergency protocols." His voice carried through the public address system, steady and commanding. Liara's sharp eyes detected a small squadron attempting to bypass defenses and reach the palace directly. "Captain, they are splitting their forces. Their priority is the palace. We cannot let them reach it." Daniel nodded. "Then we intercept them here." He and a small team of elite soldiers moved to strategic positions, while Liara provided calculations for optimal interception. The rogue fighters swooped low, their black hulls reflecting the city lights as they advanced. Daniel fired with precision, his training and instincts honed by countless battles. But the enemy was clever, adapting quickly to their defenses. Liara pointed out weak spots in their formations, suggesting maneuvers that Daniel had never considered. Following her guidance, he directed the soldiers in a series of counterattacks that surprised the intruders. For the first time, Daniel fully understood what it meant to fight not just with strength, but with strategy, observation, and coordination. Liara's input turned the tide. One by one, the rogue fighters were neutralized or forced to retreat. When the last ship was disabled, Daniel breathed heavily, lowering his weapon. "We did it," he said, incredulous. "I didn't think we could hold them off like that." Liara's expression was calm, but her eyes reflected satisfaction. "You adapted quickly, Captain. You did not rely solely on force. That is what makes a true protector." Daniel couldn't help but smile. "I couldn't have done it without you." She inclined her head. "And I could not have succeeded without your courage. That is the value of partnership." The city below slowly returned to normal. Civilians emerged from shelters, grateful yet unaware of how close they had come to danger. Daniel and Liara returned to the palace, exhausted but triumphant. Later that evening, as they reviewed the events and debriefed with military officials, Daniel realized that the day had changed him. He had faced death countless times in war, but today he had fought to protect something fragile yet infinitely valuable, a symbol of peace and hope. Liara's presence had not been a distraction or a burden. It had been a force multiplier, a source of insight and perspective that turned a desperate situation into a victory. Liara watched him quietly. "Captain Hayes, your instincts are remarkable, but you also listened. That is what allowed us to succeed." Daniel shook his head, still catching his breath. "I never imagined that a princess could fight like that or think like that. I've faced alien enemies before, but I've never had an ally like you." She smiled faintly. "Perhaps you have underestimated the value of understanding and collaboration. Strength alone does not win wars. Strategy, trust, and respect are equally important." For the first time, Daniel realized that his role extended beyond the battlefield. Protecting Liara was not just about surviving attacks. It was about learning, adapting and forming connections that could ensure the safety and prosperity of two civilizations. That night, as they stood together on the balcony again, Daniel felt a new kind of responsibility. He had survived countless wars, but this mission required a different kind of courage. The courage to trust, to listen, and to act wisely. Liara looked at him, her gaze softening. Captain Hayes, you have proven yourself capable not only as a soldier but as a protector and partner. The challenges ahead will test both of us, but I have faith that we can meet them together. Daniel nodded, feeling a quiet determination rising within him. I'll protect you, Liara, and I'll learn from you too. Whatever comes next, we face it together. She inclined her head, a gesture of approval. Very well. Then let us rest tonight, for tomorrow will demand even more from both of us. As the city slept beneath them, Daniel realized that his life had changed irrevocably. He had expected medals and accolades, but he had received something far more significant: trust, responsibility, and an unexpected bond that transcended worlds. And as he gazed at the stars, he understood that this was only the beginning. The rogue faction had been defeated for now, but challenges would return, testing his courage, wisdom, and the strength of the partnership he had forged with Princess Liara. Daniel Hayes, the soldier who had expected a medal, now understood that true heroism was measured not in honors, but in choices, trust, and the courage to face the unknown with integrity. And together, he and Liara would continue to navigate a future that demanded bravery of a different kind, one that required hearts as well as minds, and strength as much in understanding as in combat. The city was calm that morning, but Daniel Hayes could feel tension under the surface. Even though the rogue faction had been repelled the day before, he knew they would not give up so easily. Threats like these had a way of returning, often stronger and more cunning than before. Princess Liara stood beside him on the balcony, her violet eyes scanning the horizon with quiet focus. "You sense it too, Captain?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "Yes, they won't stay gone for long. We need to be ready, and not just for them. Earth's leaders will be watching, and every move we make matters." Liara tilted her head. "Then we must act with foresight. Strategy is as important now as strength." They spent the morning reviewing plans, checking security systems, and coordinating with Earth forces. Daniel was amazed at how calm and organized Liara remained, even when faced with the possibility of renewed attacks. Her presence was both reassuring and motivating. He had never met anyone who could combine intelligence, grace, and courage so naturally. By noon, a message arrived. The rogue faction was regrouping and heading back toward the planet, this time in a larger formation. They were no longer just seeking to scare. They intended to strike decisively. Daniel's jaw tightened. It was one thing to face enemies in battle, another entirely to defend a diplomat who represented not just herself, but an entire empire. Liara placed a hand lightly on his arm. "Do not underestimate them, Captain, but do not underestimate yourselves either. Together we are stronger than they expect." Daniel felt a surge of determination. "All right, let's finish this." They moved quickly. Daniel coordinated the city's defenses, while Liara analyzed the incoming fleet, identifying weaknesses in their formations and offering advice on strategic positions for interception. Soldiers, engineers, and pilots followed their instructions, their morale bolstered by the calm authority of the captain and the princess. The first wave of the enemy fleet appeared on sensors just as the sun began to set. Their ships glinted darkly in the sky, silent and menacing. Daniel and Liara stood side by side on the palace balcony, watching as the enemy approached. "Captain Hayes," Liara said, her voice steady, "we must anticipate their tactics. They may attempt diversion and deception." "Stay alert," Daniel nodded, gripping his communicator tightly. "We're ready. Let's show them what humanity and its allies can do." The battle began swiftly. Rogue ships swooped low, firing weapons designed to disable Earth defenses. Daniel's team responded with precision, but this time the enemy was smarter, more coordinated. They split into multiple squads, attempting to reach the palace from unexpected angles. Liara's eyes flicked across the display panels. They are trying to flank us. If we allow them to reach the palace, it will be chaos. Daniel acted instantly. Redirect all interceptors to Sector 3. Use the new drones to block their path. Prepare countermeasures. Liara provided precise adjustments, predicting the enemy's movements before they happened. Daniel realized that her insight was invaluable, not just tactical, but instinctive. She had the mind of a strategist and the intuition of a warrior. As the enemy approached the palace perimeter, Daniel led a small squad to intercept them directly. The fight was tense, with debris and energy blasts lighting up the night sky. He moved with precision, dodging attacks, giving orders, and protecting Liara from any immediate danger. Liara, meanwhile, directed defense systems from inside the palace, using her knowledge of alien technology to anticipate enemy maneuvers. At one point, she activated a defensive shield just in time to block a powerful energy strike aimed directly at the palace gates. Daniel paused for a moment, catching his breath, and looked at her through the reinforced glass. "You're incredible," he said quietly. She smiled faintly. "You are not so bad yourself, Captain Hayes. Together, we are stronger than they imagined." The battle raged on, but thanks to their combined efforts, the rogue fleet began to falter. Daniel's soldiers held the line, following his commands with precision, while Liara's strategic guidance turned the tide. One by one, the enemy ships were disabled or forced to retreat, unable to match the coordination and intelligence of their opponents. Finally, the last of the rogue faction's ships was neutralized. Daniel and Liara allowed themselves a moment of relief, watching as the night sky cleared of enemy presence. The city below slowly emerged from hiding, citizens unaware of just how close they had come to danger. Liara turned to Daniel. "You have done more than protect me, Captain. You have protected hope, and you have shown that humans are capable of more than mere survival. They can inspire, lead, and unite." Daniel shook his head, still breathing heavily. "I didn't do it alone. You guided me, taught me to think beyond what I know, and helped me see the bigger picture." She studied him, her expression softening. "Then we have learned from each other, and that, Captain Hayes, is a triumph greater than any medal or honor." Daniel realized she was right. He had expected recognition, a medal, a simple symbol of his bravery. Instead, he had been given something far more valuable: trust, partnership, and the chance to make a meaningful difference for not just humans, but the relationship between two civilizations. That evening, a formal ceremony was held in the palace courtyard. Leaders from Earth and representatives of the Zenthari Empire gathered to acknowledge the recent events. Daniel stood beside Liara, feeling the weight of responsibility settle comfortably on his shoulders. Instead of a medal, the council presented him with a commendation recognizing his role in safeguarding Princess Liara and ensuring the stability of the alliance. It was not a simple token, but a testament to his courage, intelligence, and integrity. Liara stepped forward, placing her hand gently on Daniel's arm. "Captain Hayes," she said, her voice carrying across the courtyard, "you have proven yourself worthy not of a medal alone, but of friendship, respect, and honor. Your actions have strengthened the bond between our peoples." The crowd erupted in applause, and Daniel felt a warmth that no medal could have given him. He glanced at Liara, who met his gaze with a quiet smile. In that moment, he understood the depth of their connection, not romantic, not necessarily, but one built on trust, respect, and shared experience. After the ceremony, as the city settled into a peaceful night, Daniel and Liara walked together along the palace gardens. The moon reflected on the calm waters of the fountains, casting gentle light on the paths. "You know," Daniel said, breaking the comfortable silence, "I expected a medal when I came home. I never imagined I'd be standing here, side by side with a princess, protecting a future that's bigger than both of us. Liara laughed softly, the sound melodic and reassuring. Life is full of surprises, Captain Hayes. Sometimes the greatest rewards are not what we expect, but what we earn through courage, trust, and partnership. Daniel nodded. I'll never forget this, Liara. Not the battles, not the threats, but the lessons I've learned, and the bond we've formed. She inclined her head. Nor will I, and perhaps, one day, our alliance will grow even stronger, not just between our peoples, but between us as allies and friends. For the first time in weeks, Daniel felt a true sense of peace. He had survived countless battles, faced dangers that would have overwhelmed ordinary men, and now stood at the center of a story far greater than himself. He had learned that heroism was not measured by medals or honors, but by choices, courage, and the willingness to face the unknown with integrity. As they walked under the moonlight, Daniel realized that his life had changed forever. He had been given an alien princess. Yes, but in doing so, he had received far more than recognition or reward. He had gained understanding, partnership, and the knowledge that humanity could rise to meet challenges beyond imagination. And as they gazed at the stars together, Daniel knew one thing with certainty. The adventures were far from over. New challenges would come, new decisions would have to be made, and new bonds would be tested. But he was ready. With Princess Liara by his side, he understood that there was nothing he could not face, not alone, and certainly not together. The soldier who had once expected a medal had received something far greater, a purpose, a partnership, and a story that would shape the future of two civilizations. And in that quiet, starlit moment, Daniel Hayes smiled, knowing that true heroism was not about the recognition he sought, but about the lives he protected, the trust he earned, and the courage he showed when it mattered most. The city slept peacefully below, and for the first time in a long while, Daniel felt the calm certainty of a mission completed, a bond forged, and a future that promised both challenge and hope.